Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep into the world of JFK assassination research.
Always a fascinating topic.
It is, isn't it? And this time, we've got a really unique lens to view it through. We're diving into an issue of the Kennedy Assassination Chronicles.
Oh, interesting. I've heard good things about that publication. It's for serious researchers, right?
It is, but it's also surprisingly accessible, even if you're just starting to explore the JFK assassination.
Well, that's good to know. What kind of stuff are we looking at in this issue?
Let's see, we've got letters to the editor, some really insightful editorials, articles by some big names in JFK research.
Sounds like a good mix.
It is. And the topics are all over the map. We're talking conflicting accounts of the autopsy, Oswald's potential intelligence connections, even a deep dive into the mysterious Mexico City trip.
Okay, you've got my attention. Let's get into it.
All right, so any good deep dive has to start with the letters to the editor section.
It's the heart of any publication, for sure.
And this issue is packed with some fascinating debate. One reader, for example, is challenging the accuracy of the time differences in a previous article.
Oh, which article was that?
It was about Fletcher Prouty's claims.
Ah, yes, Prouty. Always a controversial figure. What's this reader's issue?
Well, they offer their own research paper as a counterpoint.
Wow, that's dedication. Goes to show how deeply people care about getting this history right.
It really does. And then we have a bit of a lighter moment. Deborah Crouch, the associate editor, she actually admits to using inaccurate clip art in previous issue.
Uh-huh. Well, we all make mistakes. At least she owns up to it.
It definitely adds a human touch to the publication. Reminds you that even serious researchers can have a sense of humor.
Exactly.
But then we get back into some real intrigue with another letter. A reader is questioning a photo of Oswald rabbit hunting. Says it doesn't match up with his military records.
That's interesting. What are they suggesting?
Well, they even bring up the possibility of an Oswald switch.
The idea that someone else might have been posing as Oswald at certain times.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And researcher Ian Griggs, he actually weighs in on this, pointing out other inconsistencies in Oswald's appearance throughout the years.
So this switch theory gets even more intriguing. I like how this publication fosters this kind of back and forth exchange of ideas.
It's so important for healthy debate. Speaking of different perspectives, how about we look at how the media portrayed the assassination? Different outlets, different narratives,
Lead the way.
Okay, so we've got a Dallas Morning News editorial here that's pretty critical of the singular focus on the CIA in intelligence failures.
You mean blaming everything on the CIA?
Exactly. They argue that we need to look to the entire intelligence community, not just one agency.
Makes sense. A complex event like this likely involved multiple players.
And then there's Robert McNamara, the former Secretary of Defense.
McNamara, what does he have to say?
He actually believes that Kennedy would have withdrawn from Vietnam.
Really? That's a pretty significant statement.
It is, especially considering McNamara's own actions during Kennedy's administration. Makes you think about the what-ifs.
It does. It's like, how different could things have been?
Right. And what's really fascinating is how differently people interpret the same event.
Oh, absolutely. Perception is everything.
For example, there's a Dallas Morning News article that refers to Oswald as the presidential assassin.
Okay.
Well, the reader responses are totally split on that. One reader is like, hold on, Oswald was never convicted.
Fair point.
But then another reader defends the paper's choice of words.
It highlights the power of language. Even a single word can shape how we perceive history.
Absolutely. And then we have Marina Oswald Porter, Oswald's widow, chiming in.
Oh, wow. What does she have to say?
She's pretty critical of a Texas Monthly article. Not happy about them using that assassin label and interviewing Oswald's daughter about her father's actions.
It's a sensitive topic, for sure.
It is. She even encourages people to check out researchers like Harold Weisberg, who challenge the official narrative.
Always good to get different perspectives.
Right. And speaking of conflicting narratives, we've got these articles from the Los Angeles Times and the Dallas Morning News.
Yeah, what about them?
Well, they reveal some inconsistencies in how Fidel Castro's reaction to the assassination was reported.
That's interesting. What kind of inconsistencies?
So according to these articles, Castro believed there were multiple shooters involved, based on his own ballistics tests.
Wow, that directly contradicts the Warren Commission.
It does. And the articles also mention that Oswald allegedly threatened to kill Kennedy after being denied a visa at the Cuban embassy in Mexico City.
Another layer of intrigue.
It is. Okay, now this next one is a real deep dive. We've got Ian Gregg, and he's doing some serious detective work here, focusing on the Carousel Club in Dallas.
The Carousel Club. Wasn't that Jack Ruby's nightclub?
It was. And Greg is trying to match stage names with the real names of the strippers who work there.
Talk about a challenge.
No kidding. It's like piecing together a historical jigsaw puzzle.
And did he find anything interesting?
He did. He actually uncovered Kathy Kay's real name, Lillian Helen Harvey, which was previously unknown in the research community.
So new information still coming to light even all these years later. That's amazing. What about the rest of the list? Any familiar names?
Well, that's the thing. The list of stage names and real names that Greg has compiled raises a lot of questions.
Like, what were their connections to Ruby, to Oswald, to the assassination?
Exactly. So much to unpack there.
Uh,
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and look at this reprinted article from the Dallas Morning News.
what's this one about?
It's written by Dr. Charles Crenshaw, a surgeon who was actually part of the team that tried to save Kennedy's life at Parkland Hospital.
Wow, a first-hand account. That's got to be powerful.
It is. And what makes it even more compelling is that he challenges the official narrative. He believes Kennedy was shot from the front.
Oh, that's a big claim. Does he offer any evidence?
He does. He points to eyewitness accounts from other doctors and the initial description of the throat wound as an entrance wound by Dr. Malcolm Perry.
That's pretty significant coming from medical professionals who are right there in the room.
Right. It really makes you question the official narrative. And speaking of questioning the narrative, this issue also explores alternative media outlets dedicated to the JFK assassination, like Fair Play magazine.
Fair Play. I haven't heard of that one.
Well, back then, it was an electronic magazine accessible on the World Wide Web, cutting-edge technology.
Ah, so this was the early days of online JFK research. What kind of stuff did they publish?
Well, they didn't shy away from the possibility of a successful conspiracy. They acknowledged that identifying the true planners might be impossible.
A bold stance. What else was in there?
Articles defending key witnesses like Roger Craig, deeper dives into lesser-known aspects of the Sylvia Odio case, interviews with individuals connected to the assassination.
Sounds like a treasure trove of alternative perspectives.
It is. Now, next up, we've got George Michael Vivica, and he's analyzing Earl Warren's refusal to examine the FBI file on Oswald.
That's a juicy topic. Why wouldn't Warren want to see the FBI file?
Well, Ivica explains how the Warren Commission kept running into this dirty rumor, the possibility that Oswald was an FBI informant. And this created tension between the Warren Commission staff and Earl Warren himself.
So a potential conflict of interest within the commission.
Exactly. And according to Ivica, Warren actively blocked attempts to access the complete FBI file on Oswald, which of course fueled suspicions about potential cover-ups.
Makes sense. If there's nothing to hide, why not release everything?
Exactly. And this refusal is significant because it prevented independent analysis of key evidence that could have shed light on Oswald's intelligence connections.
So potentially crucial information was kept under wraps.
It seems that way. And get this, later evidence uncovered by the House Select Committee on Assassinations actually supported the dirty rumor, suggesting Oswald's potential role as an agent or asset for various U.S. intelligence agencies.
Wow. So the plot thickens. It's amazing how each new piece of information just complicates the picture even further.
It really is. Okay, now, are you ready to hear from a true legend in JFK assassination research?
Lay it on me.
This issue features an exclusive interview with Harold Weisberg.
No way! Weisberg, the guy who literally wrote the book on challenging the Warren Commission.
That's the one, and he does not hold back in this interview.
I can only imagine. What does he have to say?
Well, first, he talks about his previous encounter with Norman Mailer back in 1973.
Mailer, the famous novelist, what was he doing involved in JFK research?
Well, Weisberg actually offered Mailer access to his massive collection of documents.
Wow, that's generosity. Weisberg sounds like he's dedicated to sharing information and encouraging collaboration within the research community.
Absolutely. But here's where it gets interesting. Weisberg is very critical of Mailer's new book, Oswald's Tale.
Oh, why is that?
Well, he sees it as nothing more than a rehash of old information, basically supporting what he calls the official mythology of the assassination.
Ah, so he thinks Mailer is just towing the party line.
Pretty much. And he even goes so far as to suggest that Mailer was a hired hand for Larry Schiller, who arranged access to those KGB files on Oswald.
Interesting. So he's implying that Mailer was being used to push a certain narrative.
It seems that way. And then he drops his bombshell. He claims the KGB actually suspected Oswald of being an American agent.
Wow, that's a whole other level of intrigue. It adds another layer to those potential intelligence connections we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. And it just shows how deep this rabbit hole goes.
It really does. What else does Weisberg talk about in the interview?
Well, he also criticizes Mailer's portrayal of Marina Oswald. He finds it irrelevant to the core issues of the assassination. And he really emphasizes the possibility that Oswald was manipulated by intelligence agencies.
You mean that he was a pawn in a larger game?
Exactly. Weisberg even points out that even someone with little experience can be used in that way.
That's a chilling thought. Makes you wonder how much we really know about what was going on behind the scenes.
Doesn't it? And Weisberg also expresses skepticism about the significance of Oswald's trip to Mexico City. He acknowledges that we have limited information about what really happened there.
So he's approaching everything with a healthy dose of skepticism, which is probably essential in this line of research.
Definitely. And he's not done yet. He also criticizes Mailer's handling of the Sylvia Odio episode, promising a more thorough examination in his upcoming book, Never Again.
Wow, so he's leaving us hanging. Guess we'll have to wait for that book to get the full story.
It seems like every answer just leads to more questions.
That's the nature of JFK assassination research. But speaking of exploring further, this issue of the Chronicles also mentions an upcoming public hearing by the Assassination Records Review Board.
The Assassination Records Review Board, what's that?
They're an independent federal agency tasked with identifying and releasing assassination-related records. Basically, they decide what information gets released to the public.
Oh, interesting. And what's this hearing about?
Well, this one is set to take place in New Orleans, and it's focused on uncovering local records related to the JFK assassination. And the lineup of witnesses is pretty impressive.
Really? Who's going to be there?
Well, we've got Lindy Boggs, former congresswoman and wife of Congressman Hale Boggs, who was a Warren Commission member.
Wow, that's a direct connection to the official investigation.
Right. Then there's Wayne Everard, archivist for the city of New Orleans. He oversees those records from Jim Garrison's investigation.
Garrison, the New Orleans district attorney who pursued the conspiracy case.
That's him. And then we've also got Dr. Michael L. Kurtz, professor of history and author of Crime of the Century.
So a real expert on the assassination.
Absolutely. Plus, Steven Tyler, who produced and directed that documentary, He Must Have Something, the real story of Jim Garrison's investigation. And Cynthia Ann Wegman, daughter of Edward Wegman, Clay Shaw's defense attorney during that 1969 conspiracy trial.
Wow, multiple perspectives and generations represented. This is shaping up to be a major event.
It is, and the board's job is to determine which records should be released immediately and which ones require a postponed release date.
So it's an ongoing effort to uncover and analyze key documents.
Exactly. And hopefully bring us closer to the truth.
It makes you wonder what secrets these records might hold and how they could potentially change our understanding of the JFK assassination.
It really does. And with each new piece of information that comes to light, the puzzle just becomes even more intricate. So where were we? Oh yeah, Weisberg's thoughts on Mailer.
Right, so Mailer. Well, Weisberg also takes issue with how he portrays Marina Oswald.
Really? What does he say?
He basically says it's irrelevant, not important to the core issues of the assassination.
That's an interesting take.
Weisberg also really emphasizes this idea that Oswald was manipulated.
You mean like a pawn?
Exactly. By intelligence agencies, he says. And he makes a good point.
What's that?
He says that even someone with little experience, they can become a pawn in a much bigger game.
It's a chilling thought to be used like that.
It is. And then on top of that, Weisberg is super skeptical about the Mexico City trip.
Oswald's trip.
Yeah, the one everyone talks about. He basically says, we don't really know what happened there. We have limited information,
So we should take everything with a grain of salt, right?
Exactly. Oh, and get this. He also criticizes how Mailer handles the Sylvia Odio episode.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole.
It is. And Weisberg says he's going to do a much deeper dive in his own book, Never Again.
Ha ha. So much for settling the debate. It seems like this just opens up even more avenues to explore.
That's JFK research for you. Always another layer to uncover. But speaking of exploring further, this issue also mentions a public hearing.
Oh, who's holding a hearing?
The Assassination Records Review Board.
The Assassination Records Review Board. I'm not familiar.
They're an independent federal agency. They're tasked with identifying and releasing, assassination-related records.
Oh, interesting. So they're the gatekeepers of the information in a way.
Exactly. And this particular hearing, it's going to be in New Orleans.
New Orleans, huh? What's the focus?
They're trying to uncover local records related to the assassination.
Makes sense. New Orleans has a lot of connections to the JFK story.
Right. And get this, the witness list is pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah. Who are we talking about?
Okay, so first up, we've got Lindy Boggs.
Lindy Boggs. Wasn't she a congresswoman?
She was. And her husband, Congressman Hale Boggs, he was actually a Warren Commission member.
Wow. That's a direct connection to the official investigation.
It is. And then there's Wayne Everard. He's the archivist for the city of New Orleans.
So he would have access to all those local records.
Exactly. He oversees the records from Jim Garrison's investigation, too.
Garrison, the DA who went after Clay Shaw, that's a controversial case.
It is. And then there's Dr. Michael L. Kurtz. He's a professor of history, and he wrote Crime of the Century.
That's a pretty well-known book on the assassination.
It is. Oh, and we also have Steven Tyler. He's a producer and director, and he made the documentary. He must have something. The real story of Jim Garrison's investigation.
So we've got academics, archivists, filmmakers. This is a diverse group of witnesses.
It is. Oh, and last but not least, we have Cynthia Ann Wegman. Her father, Edward Wegman, was Clay Shaw's defense attorney.
During the 1969 trial.
The one and only. So yeah, multiple perspectives, multiple generations. It's going to be fascinating to see what they have to say.
It really is. And what's the board's role in all this?
Well, they have to decide which records should be released right away and which ones need a postponed release date.
It's a delicate balance,
Yeah.
making sure the right information gets out there at the right time.
Right. It's an ongoing effort. They're trying to analyze key documents, hopefully get us closer to the truth.
It makes you wonder, though, what secrets those records might hold and how they could change our understanding of the JFK assassination.
Absolutely. It's like peeling back layers of a historical onion. And with each layer, the story gets more complex, more intriguing.
And sometimes more confusing. It really is. And with all this new information constantly coming to light, well, it makes you wonder, right?
It does. It makes you think, like, how much do we really know about JFK, about the assassination, about, well, anything?
It's humbling, isn't it, to realize that even after all this time, there are still so many unanswered questions.
It is. This issue of the Kennedy Assassination Chronicles, it's really taken us on quite a journey. I mean, we've got those passionate letters from readers.
Yeah, and those editorials, really thought-provoking.
And then the in-depth articles and that incredible interview with Harold Weisberg. It just shows you the debate about the JFK assassination, it's far from over.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what makes it so fascinating. It's a living history, you know? It's not just some event frozen in time. It's a dynamic, evolving narrative.
And we're all a part of it, in a way.
Exactly. We're all trying to piece together this puzzle to make sense of what happened.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, what stands out to you, like the most important takeaway from this issue?
For me, it's got to be the emphasis on primary sources. You see it everywhere in those letters, in Dr. Crenshaw's first-hand account.
Yeah, he was actually there.
He was. And of course, in Weisberg's insistence on sharing his document collection, it's a reminder, you know, we need to get as close as possible to the original evidence. That's crucial for any historical investigation.
Absolutely. And speaking of getting closer to the truth, that upcoming Assassination Records Review Board hearing, the one in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be big.
It is. We've got those witnesses connected to the Warren Commission, to Garrison's investigation. Who knows what they'll reveal? Maybe even some new documents.
It's exciting to think about. It shows you that the pursuit of truth, it's an ongoing process. It never really ends.
This deep dive, it's made me realize, like, how much our understanding of history can be shaped by different perspectives, by the information that's available to us.
It's true. And with the JFK assassination, I mean, there's just so much information out there.
It can be overwhelming.
It can. I think that's the biggest challenge for researchers, for anyone trying to make sense of it all. You've got the official documents, the witness testimonies, the media coverage, all those books and articles.
And in the conspiracy theories, the misinformation.
It's a lot to sift through. It takes real dedication, real critical thinking skills to navigate all that. But you know what? That's also what makes it so fascinating. It's a puzzle, a historical mystery that keeps us engaged, keeps us questioning, keeps us searching for answers.
Well said. And for our listeners out there, don't just take our word for it, right? Dig in, explore the Kennedy Assassination Chronicles yourselves.
Yeah, form your own conclusions. You might be surprised by what you uncover.
And here's a final thought to leave you with. With technology, with all this information becoming more accessible, will we ever really know for sure what happened that day in Dallas?
Or will the JFK assassination always remain an enigma, a historical mystery that continues to intrigue and challenge us?
Those are questions we'll leave you to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of JFK assassination research.